At 1 in the morning when we're not even here.
I'll be sleeping.
Can we
Okay, this is part 3.
Pizza. Can I also pizza?
There's a high tide tonight. The passenger with the bird mask in the gondola told us that, said Annie. Yeah, and the winds are from the south. The weather vane told us that. The water's flowing down from the mountains. The woman at the cafe told us that. Yeah, and storms out at sea. I saw lightning when we crossed the water, said Jack. All the conditions are here, said Annie. Jack and Annie looked around. Water was now flowing steadily from the alleyways into the small square. It had risen above their ankles. I get it now, said Jack. The water will just keep getting higher and higher until it destroys the whole city. And no one's paying attention because they're all at Carnival. Yes?
What book is this called?
This is Carnival at Candlelight. And where were we? Let's see.
You cut her off.
That's okay. There it is. Neptune's the only one who can help us stop the flood, said Annie. But Neptune's not real, said Jack. I mean, he's a character in mythology, and mythology's not real life. It's okay, said Annie. Let's just take one step at a time. At midnight, 2 guys will tell us the time. And then we should climb to the top of their tower, right? Right, said Jack. So what we have to do now is find those 2 men, said Annie. Let's go back to the waterfront, said Jack. The man with the dog said everyone in Venice would be there for the fireworks. Jack put his book away. Then he and Annie retraced their steps over the footbridge and back through the alley. Lots of seaweed was floating in the narrow lanes between the buildings. Water is definitely flowing in from the sea, Jack thought. When they got back to St. Mark's Square, people were streaming towards the waterfront. Jack and Annie walked with the crowd. Everyone was talking and laughing as they looked up at the sky over the water, waiting for the fireworks to begin. No one paid attention to the damp winds or the seawater spilling over the sides of the canal, soaking their shoes. Excuse me, Annie shouted. Can anyone tell us what time it is? No one answered. For just then, the first explosion of fireworks shook the night. The crowd cheered as blue and red showers exploded in the sky. In the distance, a clock started to chime. Jack counted the bongs. 12, he said. It's midnight now, according to that clock. Their clocks are like the ones in the school, right? Every classroom's clock is different.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. More fireworks exploded over the waterfront, and another clock began to clang. This time, Jack counted only 11 bongs.
What?
11.
So it's 12, 11. So 12 hours has passed already?
11 hours.
So it's 11, 12. So we need to get out of here. No one released us.
If it's midnight, we should all be home sleeping. You're right.
Mm-hmm. When it's midnight, I'm going to be snoozing my way home. I was snoozing my way home. I was at the door
Hey, this is crazy, he muttered. Jack looked around at the crowd. Can anyone tell us the real time? Is it midnight yet? He yelled. Can anyone tell us? No one answered. Not even one man, much less 2. Everyone was oohing and eyeing over the dazzling fireworks. Another clock began to sound. This one was much louder than the first 2. Bong. This is hopeless, said Jack. Bong. We'll never know the right time, he said. Bong.
3,
Jack, look over there, said Annie.
Yeah.
Bong.
4.
We'll never find the 2 men with the tower, said Jack. Bong.
Why do they keep saying that?
I don't know. Jack, look, said Annie. Bong. All of Venice is about to drown in a flood, said Jack. Bong. And everyone's just cheering for the fireworks, said Jack. Bong. Jack, look, said Annie. She pointed towards the clock tower at St. Mark's Square. Bong. Jack saw a huge bell on top of the tower. 2 bronze statues were holding a club and striking the bell. Bong. The statues were of 2 men.
Really?
Bong.
11. That's 10.
At midnight, 2 men will tell you the time, said Annie. Bong.
12.
I'm glad you were counting. The 2 men struck the bell for the 12th time and then stopped. Come on, cried Jack. We have to climb that tower. More fireworks thundered over the canal as Jack and Andy pushed their way back through the crowd. They ran into St. Mark's Square and splashed their way to the tall tower with the 2 men on top. They ran to the arched entry of the tower and stepped inside. The air was damp and musty. Stairs, said Jack. He ran to a dark, winding staircase and started up. Annie followed. They climbed and climbed until they reached the top of the tower. Jack was breathing hard as he pushed open a heavy door that led out onto the bell terrace. The 2 statues were frozen on either side of the bronze bell. As soon as Jack and Annie stepped onto the terrace, the wind blew their hats off their heads. The air was filled with crackling and hissing sounds as more fireworks burst through the sky. Everyone on the waterfront was clapping and cheering. Boing, yeah. That's the next thing Merlin tells us to do is find Neptune, Annie shouted. Jack pulled out Merlin's letter. Holding onto it tightly as it flapped in the wind, he read, "The king of the jungle will carry you there, not over land, but high in the air." Yes?
Last July when I was with my cousins, because they were far away, and they lit huge fireworks that go boom.
Mm-hmm. Adela.
Right when they're launched?
Go ahead.
I mean, exactly when they come up off the ground.
Yes.
It's 12 days till my birthday.
12 days? You're going to be 63, right?
No. He's turning 63. Pretty old. And
Pretty
for a
old
second
for
grader.
second grade, yeah?
Yeah.
How old are you going to be?
Are you going to be 8? Yeah.
You're going to be 8? Cool.
Are you going to be
Adela.
68? Yeah. My birthday is in 26 days.
Wow.
My birthday is like 22.
Reese?
I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, okay. Hannah?
Like my birthday is gonna be like in 6 or 7 days. What?
What's your birthday? What date is your birthday?
9th. I'm like saying.
9th?
Yeah. It's gonna be like.
That will be Tuesday of next week.
Wait, Hannah.
What?
How many days till your birthday?
Go ahead.
My birthday's on June 11th, so it's still a long time away.
Yeah.
No,
Eli.
my birthday. Wait, no. You wanna know when my birthday is? In 6 months.
When?
February 28th.
Cool.
There's a bunch of stuff.
If you'd waited a day and you were born on leap year, you'd have a birthday every 4 years.
What?
Yes.
My birthday's on April 9th, so I'll wait like 4 months.
Ah.
I have to wait a
Yes.
long time. My birthday's
I don't have to wait very long.
Yeah, you only have to wait for 6 days.
It's when?
Mine's in September 23rd.
Okay. Pretty good.
Or you can just look at that board.
I'm alone. Birthday December 13th.
Ah,
Look on the
Reese.
calendar.
I'm June 11th.
so we're out of school. Okay, let's finish this book so we can get on to,
On
go ahead.
December it says my name and no one else.
Cool, just before St. Patrick's Day. The king of the jungle is a lion, said Annie. So it sounds like we need to find a flying lion. Right, said Jack, but where? How about that one? Said Annie. She was pointing over the terrace railing. Jack looked down. Standing on the wide ledge below was the stone statue of a lion. Growing out of the lion's back were two powerful-looking carved wings. But that's just a statue, cried Jack. How can a statue take us anywhere? Annie grinned. I think it's time to use a little more magic. Chapter 7, The King and the Ruler. Oh yeah, of course, whispered Jack. He'd forgotten all about Teddy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. Jack pulled the book out of his backpack. He and Annie studied the table of contents. Stand on water, said Annie. Make a stone come alive.
Yes.
Make metal soft, which they've already done. Turn into ducks, which they haven't done. Fly through the air. That's it. No, said Jack. Go back to make a stone come alive. Why? Asked Annie.
That'd be fun to find the
Annie has no mind.
Yes.
Because the lion's supposed to carry us, said Jack, and he already has wings. But he's made of stone. So what we need to do is make him come to life.
How's that?
Oh, right. But then what? Said Jack. Where will we go? Merlin's letter said an angel of gold would show us the way. Remember, said Annie. Angel of gold, said Jack. Where are we going to find that? And how will we find Neptune? How will he help us save Venice? Patience, said Annie. If we need more magic, we'll go back to the book. Okay, but let's hurry, said Jack. He opened Teddy and Kathleen's book to the second rhyme. He took a deep breath. He looked down at the lion on the ledge. Then he read in a loud, clear voice. Stone so silent, cold and hard, Kamadi Lee, Kumada Shard. A crackling sound seemed to come from deep within the lion's body. As Jack and Annie peered down at the statue, the lion's stone mane ruffled into a mass of shaggy fur. His stone back softened into a sleek gold coat. His stone wings stretched into long, luminous feathers. Wow, breathed Annie. Jack couldn't speak. Before their eyes, the statue had turned into a living lion with magnificent gold wings. The lion shook his mane and yawned. He had huge, sharp teeth and a long pink tongue. His ears twitched. His tough tail swayed back and forth. The lion crouched and leapt off the edge like a cat. He spread his wings and caught a strong current of wind. His wings flapped and he began circling above the square. Here, here, Annie shouted, and she waved wildly. The winged lion turned and flew back towards the tower. He glided silently onto the terrace, landing just a few feet away from Jack and Annie. He stared at them with his golden eyes. You have to help us save Venice from a flood disaster, Jack said. Can you carry us to Neptune, said Annie. The lion padded towards them. He kept staring straight at them. He tilted his tremendous head and let out a long growl, as if he was trying to answer. We have to climb on your back, said Jack. I hope we won't hurt you, said Annie. The lion let out another growl, but he didn't sound angry. Emmy.
My kids got out last night.
Last night? Cool. He sounded as if he was telling them to hurry. He crouched down so they could climb on. "I'll go first," Jack said to Annie. "I'll hold on to his mane and you can hold on to me." Jack slipped off his backpack and dropped it onto the terrace. "Take the book of rhymes," said Annie. "Got it," said Jack. He tucked the book under his arm and carefully climbed onto the lion's back.
Do they have the wand?
What?
Do they have the wand?
They don't have a wand. They have a book of magic.
And a wand. To perform that magic.
I haven't seen anything about
It
a
looks
wand.
like a unicorn horn.
No, I haven't seen anything about that. Annie climbed on behind Jack and wrapped his arms tightly around his waist. Jack twisted his fingers into the lion mane. The mane felt surprisingly soft. "Okay, we're ready," said Jack. The lion stood up. He trembled slightly, then leapt off the terrace. "Ah!" Jack yelled. The rhyme book slipped from under his arm and fell down into the flooded square below. "Oh no, our book," said Jack. "Hang on," said Annie. The lion flapped his great wings and rose through the sky. Jack pressed his knees into the lion's warm back and clung to his mane. The lion flew towards the fireworks. A shower of red sparks was opening like an umbrella. Booms and whistles filled the night. Fiery bits rained down through the darkness, whistling into the canal. "Help! We're headed straight into the fireworks," said Annie. The lion dipped and turned away from the fireworks. The red showers gave way to bursts of blue and green. "Which way do we go?" shouted Annie. As the lion flew back towards the square, Jack saw the gold weather vane on top of the watchtower. It was in the shape of an angel. "The angel of gold!" shouted Jack. The weather vane was no longer pointing north with the winds. The angel was turning slowly around and round, pointing in all directions. "Fly closer to the angel!" shouted Annie. The lion turned and flew towards the watchtower. As they drew near the golden angel, Jack called out, "Which way do we go? Which way?" The weather vane turned in a full circle and then came to a complete stop. The angel was pointing towards the southeast, over the choppy water. "To the sea," Annie called over the wind. The lion turned and soared into the wind, his strong wings shining like gold. "Oh, wow!" cried Annie. The flying lion glided past the fireworks and over the wide canal. Leaving Venice behind, he flew high over the stormy seas. Jack gripped the lion's mane with all of his might. The lion sailed in and out of thick, fast-moving clouds. He flew above crashing waves and past bolts of lightning. He flew through screaming winds and pelting rain. In the middle of the sea, far from land, the lion began circling above the water. "What's he doing?" cried Jack. "Looking for Neptune," shouted Annie. "But Neptune's not real," said Jack. "I know," shouted Annie. "We'll have to use our imaginations, like Lorenzo. Try to imagine Neptune." Jack tried to imagine Neptune, but he was too scared to think clearly. "Neptune," shouted Annie. "Rise from the water. Save Venice, Neptune. Help us." Annie's voice was lost in the wind. Jack wrapped his arms around the lion's neck. He buried his face in the lion's mane. He tried desperately to imagine Neptune. The lion let out a roar. With his hands under the lion's throat, Jack felt as if he himself were roaring. The lion roared again. The roaring made Jack feel stronger and calmer. The details of the painting came into his mind. In his imagination, Jack saw Neptune, ruler of the sea, with his white beard and long hair, his strong arms and shoulders. He saw a lovely lady who was Venice, the grand lady of the lagoon. He saw Neptune giving the grand lady a gift. "I see something," cried Annie. Jack opened his eyes and sat up. "Where?" he cried. "In the water," said Annie. Clinging to the lion's mane, Jack peered down into the darkness below. Lightning flashed over the sea. Jack saw a huge three-pronged spear rising out of the foaming, churning waves. The sea below the spear began to heave and billow. Lightning flashes again, and Jack saw a great mass of swirling seaweed rising from the waves. Not seaweed, hair, Jack realized. A man's giant head and neck appeared above the surface of the water. Then the man's massive shoulders, chest, and arms rose above the storm-tossed sea. The giant loomed high above them, as tall as a mountain. "Neptune!" cried Annie. The lion let out a roar, and then another and another. Lit by flashes of lightning, Neptune's face looked as if it had been weathered by thousands of years of wind, sand, and waves. He had deep-set eyes, craggy cheeks, a white beard, and tangled hair hanging over his shoulders. "Neptune, save Venice from the flood!" cried Jack. "Please," called Annie. "Save the grand lady of the lagoon." Neptune looked at them for a moment. Then, with his powerful arms, he lifted his spear and thrust it down into the waves. When the spear pierced the surface of the water, the sea made a gurgling sound, and then a long slurp, as if the water were falling down a drain. The thunder and lightning stopped. The storm-tossed waves grew calm. The wind died to a gentle breeze. The clouds parted, and the stars shined brightly. Neptune raised his spear. He nodded to Jack and Annie and the lion. "Thanks," cried Annie. "Thanks," shouted Jack. The lion roared again. Then Neptune began to sink back into the sea. His long arms, huge shoulders, thick neck, and craggy face, floating hair, all disappeared. The prongs of his spear sank below the surface of the water. The ruler of the sea was gone. Only a shimmering whirlpool swirled in the moonlight. Chapter 8, Home by Day. Jack could hear the flapping of wings and the sound of steady breathing. The air flew in circles above the whirlpool. Then he soared in a great arc up through the sky. "We're going back now," cried Annie. Jack lowered his head. He buried his face again in the lion's shaggy, wet mane. He didn't look up. He was too tired to think as he gave himself over to the lion's wonderful powers of flight. The lion carried Jack and Annie back through the dawn. As they glided over the calm sea, the water sparkled with light from the rising sun. By the time the lion reached the skies over Venice, darkness had turned to day. Shades of lavender glowed above the city's towers, domes, and spires. Venice was veiled in a soft pink light. The lion flew to St. Mark's Square. He glided towards the clock tower, moving more and more slowly. Finally, he landed softly, like a cat, on the terrace of the tower. Jack took a deep breath and stroked the lion's golden mane. Then he and Annie climbed off the lion's back. Jack's legs felt wobbly. He clutched the lion for a moment to get his balance. The lion let out a low growl. He turned his huge head and licked Jack's hand. His rough tongue felt like sandpaper, Jack laughed. Annie laughed too as the lion licked her. "You are magnificent," she said. "Yeah," said Jack. "That was a great ride." The lion let out a long purr. Then he pulled away from the two of them and padded to the edge of the terrace. The lion gave Jack and Annie one last look over his shoulder. Then he leapt over the terrace railing and landed silently on the ledge below. Looking over the railing, Jack and Annie watched the living lion become a statue again. In an instant, his shaggy mane, golden back, powerful legs, tough tail, and feathered wings all turned to carved gray stone. "Oh," said Jack sadly. He missed the living lion hiding inside the stone statue. Thundering bong made Jack and Annie jump. Beside them, the two bronze men were striking their gigantic bell. They struck it 6 times. "It's 6 in the morning," said Annie. "We were gone a long time." "Yeah," said Jack. "Hey, look at the angel weather vane now," said Annie. Jack looked up at the gold angel on top of the watchtower. The weather vane was turning in the wind. It suddenly stopped and pointed west. "Remember the last lines from Merlin's letter," said Annie. She recited them from memory. "An angel of gold will show you the way, to the sea by night and home by day." "I guess now that Venice is safe, the angel is telling us it's time to go home," said Jack. "Yup," said Annie.
The work is done.
Jack picked up his backpack, and he and Annie headed down the stairs of the tower. When they reached the bottom, they stepped out of the darkness into the bright morning light. Only a few puddles of water dotted the square. Carnival had ended. People in costumes had all gone home. A flock of pigeons fluttered noisily about the cobblestones, picking at orange peels, squashed grapes, torn ribbons, and feathers. There was no sign of the flood, except for some patches of seaweed. Jack turned and looked up at the clock tower. The morning sun cast a rosy light over the lion's stone body. The lion stood with pride and dignity, watching over St. Mark's Square. His great power is a secret to everyone but Jack and Annie. "Thanks again," said Annie to the lion. "Yeah, thanks," whispered Jack. Then he sighed, exhausted. "Home," he said. Annie nodded. As Jack and Annie headed across the square, 2 sweepers were cleaning up the remains of Carnival. "Oh, wow," cried Annie. She ran towards the sweepers, just as they were about to scoop up a pile of trash. She snatched something from the ground. Annie ran back to Jack. "Look," she said, and held up Teddy's and Kathleen's book of magic. "Oh, great," said Jack. He took the little book from her. It was damp from the floodwaters, but all the writing was as clear as ever. "We have 8 rhymes left," said Jack, "for our next 3 journeys." He dropped the rhyme book into his backpack. As Jack and Annie left St. Mark's Square, they saw Venice starting to wake up. Ordinary, everyday Venice, not the Venice of Carnival. Men, women, and children were opening stalls and putting out goods to sell. Cobblers were sitting at their workbenches, and cats were stretching in the chilly sunlight. The old man was walking his fat little dog, Rosa. He waved at Jack and Annie, and they waved back. "No one knows Venice was almost destroyed by a flood last night," said Jack. "And no one knows we helped save her. They just think we're a couple of raggedy clowns." Jack smiled. He had forgotten they were still wearing their carnival costume. Now their clown suits were dirty, torn, and soaking wet. Their hats were gone, and somewhere in the floodwaters or on the flight to Neptune, Jack's slippers had lost their bows. "How will we get back to the treehouse now?" asked Annie. I don't know, said Jack. I guess we'll have to find a boat to take us there. As they scanned the waterfront, Jack saw a boy sitting at the edge of the water on a small stool. The boy was painting. Hey, isn't that Lorenzo? Said Jack. He and Annie hurried over to the boy. Hi, Lorenzo, said Annie. Lorenzo glanced up and smiled. Hello, Annie and Jack. Jack and Annie looked at Lorenzo's painting. It showed pink light shimmering on blue water. That's beautiful, said Annie. It's only the background, said Lorenzo. He squinted at the canal. Soon I will add gondolas and people. Then probably I will add something not real at all. Something from my imagination. Hey, guess what? We saw Neptune last night, Annie said. You did, said Lorenzo. We found him far out at sea, said Jack. He looked just like he looks in your dad's painting. We rode to him on the back of a flying lion on the clock tower, said Annie. Lorenzo nodded. I'm glad Neptune still lives in the deep sea, he said, and I'm glad one of our lions still flies. Many people believe all the magic has left our world. The magic will never leave, said Annie. Not if painters like you and your dad keep painting. Lorenzo looked thoughtful. Then he picked up a small canvas and handed it to Jack. You and Annie take this and finish it, he said. Paint what you saw on your visit to Venice. Okay, we're not going to be able to finish this today, but we can do it tomorrow.